Hello, I'm Tom Bailey, and in today's episode, I'll be getting to know Joe Pardo, who is a profit growth strategist and the founder of the Super Joe Pardo Show and an independent creator conference. So, Joe, hello, and a very warm welcome to today's episode.
Thank you so much for having me, Super Tom. How are you feeling today?
I really appreciate it. Yeah, I'm great. Thank you so much. And whereabouts are you based out of interest?
Right outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, here in the USA.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And I just want to share a little bit more about you before we do get started. So, Joe brings a series of strategy, application, and execution planning to every entrepreneur, team, or business that he works with. And he focuses on designing individual solutions to accelerate growth for his clients. The title for today's episode is How to Rocket Your Sales. And Joe's going to talk us through that in just 7 minutes. So, question number one today is, who are your ideal clients?
So the ideal clients that I work with, I've worked with a number of different small to medium businesses, ranging from the business owner that's like, I've been the kingpin in my business for a long time, and I don't have anybody to give the business to. I want to sell it, but I need to get the money out of it, right? And the problem is when you're the kingpin and you take the kingpin out, well, then it ain't worth a whole lot. The value comes down, and they're like, oh, that's great, but you got to stay on board and you're got to work for the rest of your days here because we can't afford to pay. We're not going to pay for a business that will mostly fall apart if you're not part of it, right? So, and it enables you to be able to sell to a wider range of people. So that's one of those things where that's one of the different clients I work with. The other ones are the ones that are small, that want to get to a bit, to closer to like 100 employees. Maybe they're at like 10 to 15, 20 employees and team members, and they want to get to that next level. And they're not quite sure, what got them to where they're at. Sometimes it's by accident. It's like, oh, I started doing this thing and then it worked. So we did more of it. And who would have thought it worked? But now we have issues where we need to hire people that have very specialized skills. Maybe it's human resources people. Maybe it's more salespeople, how to motivate and train those salespeople so they don't just up and leave the moment that there's another, now I got some skills under me, and that, because I'm young and ready to be, to take up the next step. And then it's like, oh, well, now I got like a year and a half of training or a year under my belt. I'm gone. I'm going to go work for the bigger corp, and work that real ladder where there's actually room for real growth. So working on those types of opportunities with those companies, to work basically on their team, their offer, and their process. I focus really in those categories. So those businesses are the ones that really are at a turning point, and they might not even realize it because they're at the point where it's like, oh, we're all fat and happy, but there could be more. We just aren't sure, and we're not sure what risks we want to take to get there.
Okay. So let's think about that second category of business, the smaller business. What would you say is the biggest challenge that they typically face?
A lot of times it's them getting out of their own way, right? So a lot of times it's me having to play therapist, which is ironic because as a 6-year-old kid, I wanted to be a child psychologist to help other kids going through divorce like myself. So I actually get to fall into that role. Because they have trust issues, we tried to hire somebody to do some of the administrative work and it didn't really work out, so we hired somebody else, and that person had a problem, or maybe one of those 2 or 3 people that we had at one point stole from us, and we had a really bad experience, and now we're just like, we'll just do everything ourselves. And they might, one of those companies had 50, 60 employees already, but they didn't have anybody helping the 2 core people on the administrative side. And it was kind of not choking the business, but it in a way it was because it's like we can only grow so much because we can't get the productivity out that we need in these key areas that we need to be able to focus in. So a lot of times it's a people, right? So that's why I focus on the team, and then sometimes it's the offer. It could be the sales process, it could be the sales what they are offering, like what the product that they sell is, and then the process in which they go about selling it, the process in which the team members are interacting with the business. Oh, we can't keep people. Well, maybe if your process for keeping those people didn't suck, then or was modified and actually listened to what the complaints were, then maybe we could keep those people and grow the business a lot faster and a lot more efficiently and happier.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so it does sound like people are really at the core of this challenge that these businesses have. So if they don't get the right people, what is the biggest impact that this can have for either for them or the business?
Yeah, so I always say two things. One is a business is a robot. It wants to run 24/7. It's mechanical,
Hmm.
but it's unlike a robot. It doesn't have circuitry inside. It has soft gooey innards, right? And
Yeah.
we as the people are inside that robot, and we have to be able to deal with those outside influences, those troubles, issues that they're having, the challenges that those people are having, and it's the team members' challenges, not just your own challenges and things
Hmm.
you're trying to solve. It's a very complicated thing that you have to work through. So that's one piece of the puzzle, right? The other piece is and now I'm blanking on it because I went too in detail. But my point, what repeat the question one
Yeah,
last time.
yeah. I'll just jump in there. So I guess, like you said, there's a lot of complexity here throughout the whole business. So if they don't get this right, what impact will it have ultimately on the
Oh,
long-term aspirations of the business?
yeah. So I always say build your business for your lifestyle, not your lifestyle for your business.
Got it.
And the business will absolutely become your lifestyle. I've lived it. My family has lived it for literally generations, like 5 generations prior to me. It's one of those things where it's like, if you're not getting very intentional about like, okay, we're going to add this new feature to our business, we're going to add this new offer. Well, how does that interact with all the other people? Kind of like a billiards table, right? Like
Yeah,
the
yeah,
pieces are bumping into each other. There's only so much room on the billiards table,
yeah.
and we have to. There's only so much energy, right? So we're paying for time, energy, and manpower. So we have to manage those resources really carefully, or we start to overextend ourselves, overextend our team, and
Cool.
that's when things start to fall through the cracks, and people, customers ultimately have a bad experience, and then that falls back in your lap of, well, we're not coming back. So now we're down sales, and it's a self fulfilling prophecy.
Okay, perfect. So there's lots of different ways you could help these businesses, but what is the one single piece of advice you'd give somebody right now to get started on this path towards, success?
Well, so I think if you haven't started your business or just very early on, the one piece of advice that goes back several generations in my family is if owning a business was easy, everyone would do it.
Yeah,
Literally every. I mean, look, I live in South Jersey, outside of Philly, and there's a lot of service, work vans and trucks up and down the
yeah.
suburbs of my
Mhm.
area. But that doesn't mean they're all working. They don't all work for themselves, and
Right.
there's a lot of challenges that you're going to come up against that you don't necessarily know the answer, and that's okay to not know the answer as long like. Remember, you don't have to be right. The answer has to be right,
Yeah.
right? So you have to get out of your own way, come up with that solution between, whether it's with you, your team, a consultant, like, hey, like this guy right here.
Mhm.
Figure out what the solution is going to be, and then move forward with it.
Got it. Perfect. Makes sense. And next question before we move on to my last section, which is what is one valuable piece of resource or content or something you can offer the listeners to really help them get started?
Yeah. So if you're working on trying to rocket your sales right now, because business, it's the lifeblood, money
Mhm.
is the lifeblood of businesses, go over to superjoepardo.com/rocket and get 5 proven methods that I use when I work one-on-one with business owners to grow their sales. That's superjoepardo.com/rocket.
Fantastic. And what I'll do, Joe, is I'll put that into the show notes. People can click on that and they can get started straight away.
Awesome. Thank you.
So, quick question then about yourself, and that is, what would you say is one of the greatest failures or mistakes you've ever made, either in life or business, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah. So one of the things that I left my family's business in 2014.
Hmm.
In the years leading up to that, we had a huge inventory crunch, thanks to 2008 and 2012 being the years that those were,
Yeah.
and the change coming in the trucking industry. And I helped develop a algorithm to help our inventory management go from like very inefficient versus like printing out paper after paper, like thousands of papers, and then changing numbers, and then taking those papers and putting them into the computer with those changes to manage the inventory.
Nice.
To let's find a baseline algorithm that works for all the different lines, the 150 different lines that we have, the hundreds of thousands of different parts that we have in our system. And we were able to take our inventory from 6 million down to 2.5 million in about a year's time, which was
Fantastic.
incredible. We didn't fire sale or anything like that. That sounds a success, but what it came out of that was I was about 25 at the time in which I was pushing all these things. And a lot of our team members in the company had worked there as long as I had been alive. And my inability to want to listen, no matter how much the numbers don't lie. And, it's really the human factor that is the winning, is the part of the recipe for success. So being able to turn up that. So that was a failure to me and got into a lot of arguments and a lot of yelling matches. And ultimately they helped me better the algorithm, better have them happy. And eventually I got burned out because that's a whole story for a different day. But yeah, that was the thing, right? Being able to, originally not wanting to listen because I'm like, look, the numbers don't lie. You're not bringing any evidence except circumstantial evidence of stories. Yeah. And I'm bringing the evidence of the actual numbers that we saw. And, it's one of those things where it's like finding out that like, hey, there's something of what they're saying, even if it's not really the truth, right?
Got it. Yeah, got it. Perfect. Thank you so much. So a great learning lesson that you went through on that. And like I said, that human element as part of the business is so critical. Okay, so last question today, Joe, is what is one question that I should have asked you that will also bring some great value to our audience?
So the one question would be, why do I feel everything pays rent?
Okay, great question.
No, thank you. The reason everything pays rent is because when you think about things that are in your business, within your square footage that you're either paying rent, taxes on, or a lease, or the mortgage on, right? You have to think about how much space everything takes up in it, and is it paying its rent in necessity or in pleasure, right? Yeah. So if the more space it takes up, is it paying its rent? Is it paying for the square footage that it is taking up? And when you start to look at things like that in that sense, you start to get a better idea of like, maybe I don't need 200 of these things because you know what? I'm not selling that many of them. I need to get rid of them some way or another. I can't hold on to them forever. And the market has changed. I've changed what other things, and I can't just hold on to them forever. So I need to figure out how to get rid of them now, so that the space can be taken up by stuff that does indeed pay its rent for the square footage it takes up.
Great. Perfect.
Or in your case, meters. Sorry.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. A real nice perspective or shift in perspective. And I guess that came from your project with the inventory management company as well.
Yep.
Awesome. So, Joe, thank you so much again for your time today. I really appreciate you coming along and sharing such great value with our audience.
Thank you so much for having me, Super Tom.